like to take a look at the lore of different series quite a lot. Usually the lore of a series that I haven't seen before, but today I have watched both of these shows. I've watched Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. I'm pretty much caught up with season 1 of Hazbin Hotel and the 2 seasons of Helluva Boss that are out right now, which means I might get roasted for forgetting some things in this video, but there's nothing I love more than a deep dive into lore. So why don't we just get in with it? This is the complete lore of Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss by Cartoon Universe, who you should definitely subscribe to if you care about cartoons in any shape or form, because there's an entire universe of them over on this YouTube channel, and it's absolutely fantastic. Let's get into it.
We go as far down the rabbit hole as we can, breaking down the various mythological inspirations for Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss, exploring how the mythology of the two shows connect.
Now, I haven't seen the shorts. I know there's some like shorts on YouTube and stuff like that. And while I have seen the series, I do forget things. I'm very forgetful. I have a very forgetful personality. I'm a little bit ditzy
and
sometimes.
What we can theorize about based on the pieces we have. My name is Imcut. Hit that subscribe button and let's.
Oh, he has his own imp character. That's actually kind of sick.
Jump into it.
I love that. That's very
Hotel
cute.
And Helluva Boss both take place in the same universe, but are two very different shows meant to explore two very different facets of Vivsipop's world.
I love when shows take place in the same universe. I don't know what it is about it. Just having some interconnected parts of certain shows that are both really good in their own rights is really cool. And also lets you expand lore even further, because you say you have like House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones. You know, disregard the way that Game of Thrones ended. That was very, very sad. But being able to expand the lore of a really interesting universe really makes me happy, and I like it a lot. And this universe specifically super interests me because it's based on a lot of like biblical things, which I don't really know about. I've never read the Bible. I went to church a couple of times, but I'm not religious at all in my own right. It was mostly when I was a child, and my gran used to ring the bell at the top of a church, so I'd go and climb up the stairs, and I thought it was really cool because I could look down and be like, oh my god, look at all the small people down there. That's crazy.
Hazbin Hotel was, of course, conceived of first, with all of hell being just this world with the red sky, with heaven floating above it that we see in the background.
That's interesting that heaven is like there. It's just straight up there. I don't know if I watched the pilot for Hazbin Hotel or like the original first episode that they changed everything from. Because I remember there is a first episode-esque that they changed things from. I don't think I watched that. I think I just watched the proper first season.
Its central conflict was between the sinners who had lived a life on Earth before dying and manifesting as a demon in hell, and the angels as a whole. The angels include natural-born entities, as well as, like the sinners, people who had once lived on Earth before dying and manifesting as an angel in heaven.
It is so odd to me that even the angels manifest as like animals sometimes. I get like the biblically accurate angels is like there's a lot of eyes going on, there's a lot of eye iconography, which is like very creepy sometimes, but it's just weird that some of them are just like birds.
Helluva Boss's characters started as minor side characters for Hazbin Hotel, with Blitz and Moxie being described as two little troublemakers who were constantly harassing the hotel. Hazbin Hotel was seen as overflowing with characters at this point, from what I understand, so those two were moved to their own spin-off series, where they would produce a total of 16 episodes before Hazbin Hotel would finally complete production and make it to Amazon Prime with its...
I didn't realize that I didn't realize the Hazbin Hotel came out after the first 16 episodes of Helluva Boss. That's crazy. I will say, personally, I think I prefer Hazbin Hotel. I don't know, there's just something about the characters in Hazbin Hotel that I prefer. I mean, Helluva Boss is still pretty good. I think I like the aspect of the heaven versus hell more so than the interconnected hell politics that there is in there. I mean, it's cool, it's interesting. I like finding out about all like what they call the archdevil people, like Mammon and Lucifer and Gluttony. Like, they're all sweet, and I want to learn more about them. I actually think it's straight up, like, it might be the character stories that I'm not as much of a fan of. I mean, they're still good, regardless, but Hazbin Hotel, the songs got me, man. I mean, the songs are great. Like, the Loser Baby song, the Poison song, the Angel sings, they're so good.
8 episodes. Originally, Helluva Boss was meant to explore the Earth more than hell, with the series being predicated on Blitz and his team going up to Earth to kill humans on behalf of sinners in hell who want revenge.
See, that's the part that I wasn't a huge fan of. I feel like that raises a lot of potential issues where demons just like go to Earth and it's like, oh, we're just like going there. We can just go there with this special book that we're not supposed to have. Oopsie, we're not supposed to have the special book, but you know, I'm having sex with the guy that has it, so it's fine.
At some point, however, the focus would switch from Earth to 6 new locations within Hell.
See, this, I kind of do prefer this. All of them having their different locations. I also wonder how big they are, because there have to be billions and billions and billions of souls in hell, right? And the way it's like shown in the show is it looks quite small when it has like the pan out and it shows it's like one city, or it's like one city or like a small town or something like that. But there must be billions and billions of souls in this, so it must expand out. Each ring could be even as big as its own Earth.
The pilot had presented hell as just one red planet made essentially for the sinners, but many fans had already been asking if hell would end up having 9 circles to it, the way it is described in the works of Dante, which explored both hell and heaven. Vivziepop also seemed to like this idea, but instead chose to make them 7 rings of hell instead of 9 circles, based instead on the 7 deadly sins. For the
okay, I like that. That makes sense. That does make sense. Leviathan is one of the. I don't know. These names are insane. It's also interesting. I mean, obviously, like I don't really know that much about hell or heaven or anything biblical by that matter. It does shock me that Satan and Lucifer are different, though. I guess are these not all just names for the devil? I guess that have been split betwixt all of the circles that have then become their own characters. I guess so, maybe.
Vivziepop borrowed from the Peter Binsfield classification of demons, which lists 7 demonic princes ruling over hell, embodying those 7 sins.
Oh, okay. Who's this Binsfield fella?
Lucifer was already a character planned as Charlie's father in Hazbin Hotel at this point, and in this particular hierarchy, he was listed as the ruler of pride. The location we previously thought of as hell then became what we now call the Pride Ring, the uppermost ring of hell. And
I assume, like, obviously, I wonder if the cleanses happened on the other circles then, or if it's just like the Pride Ring. I guess it's just the Pride one because that's where all the sinners are, right? Sinners are just in Pride? Or I guess, well, maybe they aren't? Maybe they shouldn't be.
Helluva Boss would focus more so on exploring the 6 other rings of hell. Since Hazbin Hotel was primarily about the sinners and the angels, Helluva Boss went to explore the native species that exist in hell, such as imps, hellhounds, and succubus. Unlike sinners, these entities are born in hell and grow and develop there the way humans do on Earth. While they live somewhat longer than humans, they are not immortal the way the sinners are, and will die of old age if they manage to survive not dying by violence or some other way.
Somehow. I feel like there's a very low chance you're not dying by violence, right?
This makes Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel 2 very different shows that help fill out 2 very different parts of the same world. To limit how much the stories can affect each other, the sinners are restricted only to the Pride Ring with its red sky, and they are not allowed to travel down to the lower 6 rings of hell.
That's insane. Like, the sinners that are supposed to encompass, like, most of the people in hell are merely on 1/7 of it. That's, like, nothing. I mean, I think that it would be interesting if you got assigned to a ring, dependent on your sins. Like, if you did murder someone, you go to wrath. Or is that the one? If you eat yourself to death, then you go to gluttony or something like that.
These areas are safe havens for the mortal species where they don't have to interact with the immortal earthborn sinners, who are listed as being higher in hell's hierarchy because of their immortality. Now, I'm ready to start breaking down the real-life mythology behind all of this, but real quick, the word myth and mythology is not offensive to practicing religions, nor does it imply that they are untrue. Mythology simply refers to the stories of the origins of people and divine entities. It was used in the Greek equivalent of the Bible, Hesiod's Theogony, to refer to its own stories.
Now, he has the sources to back it up in case anyone's like, actually, it's super real, which is totally fine if you believe in any religion whatsoever. You do you, absolutely okay. But bro is like, listen, don't come at me. Okay, that's what they use. That's the text that they said.
Comparative mythology, thus, has always been a term that could be used for comparing the origins of the various stories found all over the world. Not to call one or all of them fictional, but often to try and prove the historicity of each of them. I've been asked to use the word religion instead, but of course people already complain when I bring up myths from outside the religious canon, as I'm going to be talking about mythology as a whole and not just what's considered canon to various religions. Nor is theology really appropriate because we only rope in theology when it matches mythology instead of theology based on what is considered canon, which can contradict mythology. The idea that the word myth is being used to imply fiction is just because some people have used the phrase just a myth to try and claim certain narratives are just stories instead of having a greater meaning, but the word myth has not lost its nuance because of that. So in short, there is no reason to be offended by the word myth, as to mythologize is to simply add metaphors to explain more truths in addition to a more literal story.
And there you go. Saw it. Okay.
This is why we have 4 different Gospels telling differing accounts of the life of Christ, as we can acknowledge the obvious shared history and see where the different accounts were mythologized to highlight still very true points. And why you'll still hear me saying Christian mythology while still being a strong believer in Christ, as well as someone who does their best in order to put up all different faiths and even the mythologies of lost cultures into the spotlight for everyone to see their inherent truths.
It is interesting to have the perspective of someone that is a strong, faithful Christian, comparing the lore of this series to how the books were written and how the stories were told that inspired this series to begin with. Because listen, I would not know a thing. I wouldn't even know where to start with something like this. I feel like someone that has studied this extensively has the best position to contrast and compare and analyze like the stories from the show and the media that you get from
hell
it.
and heaven may seem like opposites of each other on the surface, but it's made very clear that heaven was its own prosperous place for quite some time before hell even came into existence. Additionally, Vivzipop had said in early livestream interviews that heaven will not be an inversion of hell. Hence, there won't be 7 rings to heaven, each modeled after one of these 7 heavenly virtues. And while
which makes sense. I mean, it would be interesting, I suppose, but it makes sense that there is just like one place because it came before.
Helluva Boss presents the angelic cherubs as being a parallel to the imps of hell, that does not mean that all demonic species have some sort of counterpart in heaven of equal status or anything like that. According to Charlie's story, in the very beginning there was just heaven, where many angels lived to worship the concept of good.
Oh, there's the biblically accurate angel. Oh my goodness, look at these things. Those eyes have... Oh.
To shield existence from the concept of evil. These angels had existed for some time, as there was one group called the Elders, and they had the power and authority to, at least to some degree, shield the projects from younger entities like Lucifer, whose ideas were considered too dangerous. As of now, there isn't a
I find it interesting that I don't think there's been an appearance from like the god yet. Like the guy, or not guy, I guess the entity that is the god.
Class ranking system for these angels, as outside of the sinners, only the seraphim are explicitly named. Seraphs are often considered the highest ranking angels in various real-life writings, as in the Bible they are described as simply surrounding God and singing his praises. Seraphim translates as fiery ones or burning ones, hence why Lucifer, meaning lightbringer, is often believed to be a seraph. The term seraph is also used to describe serpents that attack the Israelites in the Bible, and thus Lucifer in the show also takes the form of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In addition to this,
that makes sense. I remember vaguely when I was young, people would talk about like, because I remember we did like religious education in school when you were young, and it would be Satan or like Lucifer that would be the snake that tempts Eve or Adam into biting the apple that makes God mad. He's like, all right, get out of the garden.
See other angels such as...
Of course, everything that I say is going to be either wrong or a gross oversimplification. So please don't get upset with me. I already acknowledge that I am not at all knowledgeable on this subject. I just think it's interesting to consume the information, especially since it's a show that I do enjoy.
With Opha meaning wheels, so Ophanim meaning wheels within wheels. And of course, in Helluva Boss, we have the cherubs, which are not like their biblical counterparts, but rather cute baby animals like in later Christian artwork. Now, the show is known for diverging from the typical interpretation of Genesis, but even in the origins of human creation, it's very different from what we normally think of when reading the Bible. In the Bible, there are 6 days of creation, over which God is said to make the heaven and the earth, saving humans for last on day 6, and then resting on the 7th day. In the original Hebrew, however, the term used that we translate as God here is Elohim. Elohim comes from the root word El, which was the name of the chief deity of the ancient Near Eastern religions that Judaism developed out of. And I am in Hebrew denotes a plurality, and thus Elohim translates not just as God, but also as counsel of God, depending on the context. Before turning to monotheism...
Okay, that's interesting. Again, this is a really good learning experience for me as well as like learning about the lore of Helluva Boss, like learning about something that I truly have never been, to be honest, interested in before. I didn't realize that Judaism was an offshoot of other like older religions.
The people of Judea would have had a mythology similar to those it developed out of, such as the Ugarites. In their mythology, El is that chief god, and he is surrounded by a group called the Elim, or the Council of El. While El was the chief god, Elim could be used to describe the actions of the deities collectively, whose goals were generally geared around that of El. In Judaism,
I always wonder where these like ancient older religions kind of come from, because, you know, it always seems like back in ancient times there were so many religions and they all had their different gods and they all had their names. So that, like, where did the names come from? Where did the specific gods come from? How did they choose the gods? I mean, obviously they would say that these gods have always been around and they've always existed. But where did they come from? Like, how were they named? How do you choose what these gods oversee? I guess they wouldn't choose because they have always existed. But it makes me curious. I want to learn more, right?
A process of monotheization would occur, wherein the word Elohim is believed to have become more popular over time because it slowly was able to reduce the names of those other different gods beneath El into a singular council, lacking particular identities, maintaining their purpose in the stories as helpers to a chief god without them being gods that you are meant to worship.
Okay, so is that what the seraphims are like projected as in the show? Is like they are the council, because there is a council in Hazbin Hotel that Charlie goes to see and they're like, oh, the sinners are like super bad. Is that like the council that praises the chief god?
And this is how we got our idea of divine angels today. In other chapters of the Bible, God will be referred to by his Hebrew name Yahweh, which we translate in our English versions as Lord, which is often just another way to refer to God, but which can sometimes remove the nuance of the word Elohim in the original Hebrew. While we translate Elohim as God in the story of the 6 days of creation, there are moments where this God refers to multiple entities around him, which we know that he sees as separate from himself because he then is referred to with more singular pronouns afterwards. It is when God is supposedly creating humans that this happens, with him saying, "Let's make man in our image," indicating a group of beings like him, that council that surrounds El. But then when he goes on to do the process of actually making man, it says that Elohim then made man in his image instead of their image.
And he created the male and female, so not necessarily male or female specifically. It could a mix of both. Pronouns are interesting when it comes to mythological, or not mythological, when it comes to like deities. So it feels like deities are so far above human society and considerations that pronouns don't even really apply to them in a way.
He said when announcing his plan to the...
They're just like above the concept of being referred to as anything but the god that they are.
This makes sense in the original Hebrew, as in other parts of the Bible, God, Elohim, is also described as standing among his council, which is still titled Elohim. So we know that the Hebrews could use this word right next to itself with different contexts. Therefore, from that, we can see that the ancient Hebrews would use the word Elohim not just with different contexts twice in the same story, but even in the same sentence. Thus, when it says God created the heavens and the earth in the Bible, some traditions would translate Elohim instead as angels creating the heavens and the earth on behalf of God. This was at one time in history meant to give reverence to the tribal gods beneath El who were being erased, acknowledging their place in history as forming civilizations as they knew it in the early world, while also making sure they weren't worshipped as part of the ultimate god. So the angels making the humans on Earth in Hazbin Hotel becomes the first of many changes to the modern understanding of the Bible that we have, that instead hail back to older traditions and interpretations, and
that does require a lot of study to be able to find out all of this information. I assume that a lot of people would simply refer to like the modern interpretations, but I mean, there's been a lot of changes over time. Like there's translations, there's stories being told in different ways. Obviously, when 2,000 years passes, information and stories and specific details will change from century to century. It's very hard to keep things very, very locked down. Even now, even with information now, there's a lot of like disinformation everywhere, especially like back in the olden time, you didn't really have the internet. You couldn't just write things down in your iPhone notepad.
It doesn't stop there. In the second story of the Bible, after the initial creation of both man and woman, we get something of a second creation story, the Garden of Eden. While these are presented as two different creation accounts, it seems likely that the people who compiled the two stories together in the Book of Genesis likely acknowledged them as focusing on separate ideas of creation. The 6 days of creation is more cosmic, being the events that lead up to humanity, and thus the Eden story, while retelling the creation of man and contradicting the order of certain things in creation, focuses more so on the beginnings of human history. In the Garden of Eden narrative, Adam is said to be created from the dust of the earth, and thus fails to find a partner for himself among the animals, who all have their own mates already. God then makes Eve out of the rib or side of Adam, depending on your translation, to be.
He took one of the ribs and closed up the flesh at that place. The Lord fashioned the woman into a woman. Whoa! What? He just takes a rib out? Goodness. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man? Oh, okay. I took a rib.
The perfect helpmate.
What for her?
The two are then told to tend to the garden for God and to eat of any fruit of the trees other than of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Despite this, the serpent tricks Eve into eating the fruit, as well as Adam, though the story emphasizes Eve's role in this through her conversation with the serpent, and Adam even blames Eve when God asks Adam why he ate the fruit. The show went about this very differently, of course, with Adam first being created from the dust of the earth with another woman named Lilith. Because of this, Lilith saw the two of them as no different from each other, equals essentially, but Adam still wanted Lilith to be subservient to him. Because of this, she fled the Garden of Eden, where she meets Lucifer. Together, they infiltrate the Garden of Eden, with Lucifer taking the form of the serpent, where he gives Eve free will through a fruit of knowledge. So why did the show...
So Eve was then created from Adam afterwards, after Lilith had left? Oh, okay. Also, Adam is a massive dick in the show. Like, Jesus. Oh my God, he's a dickhead.
Changes? There is a long-standing Jewish tradition that Eve is not actually Adam's first wife, but that he had another wife named Lilith before her. This isn't true or untrue per se, but rather when this kind of claim is made, there is something being said in very mythological terms, a distinction being made that hails from an older tradition that the story of Adam and Eve itself first came.
Wait, Lucifer's like kind of short. I like how he has the apple iconography and like the snake stuff too. That plays into that's like the surface level stuff that I understand. Like, oh, Lucifer turns into a snake because the thing, and then he's apple because the apple of the garden. That makes sense. And then there's like the deeper stuff, like who is Lilith? I didn't know there's a Lilith character. I didn't know there was is Lilith just made for the show, or is Lilith like an actual person that existed?
In the actual writing of Genesis, there is clearly no room for Lilith, and was not written by a culture that understood a Lilith character in the context of Adam's wife being made from the same dust as him. Adam is made from the dust of the earth alone in this account and given a chance to choose a helpmate from the other animals first. It is after not finding one among the animals that God realizes that man needs someone equal to him.
I'll make a helper suitable. It's not good for the man to be alone. I'll make him a helper suitable for him. It's just, I would honestly choose a dog. Just choose a dog or a cat. I mean, that'd be pretty good.
And this is why Eve is made from his side. This was not to be more subservient than Lilith, as her tradition would claim, but because she was in fact Adam's equal. Lilith instead started as a demonic figure in other ancient cultures that the people of Judea would come in contact with, where Lilith was known as an owl demon who was responsible for the death of pregnant women and their newborn babies.
What? Oh my goodness. Jesus. Wait, hold on. Owl demon? Stolas?
This was a common enough idea around the world where the death of pregnant women and young infants was hard to reconcile as part of a good God's plan, and where a character like Lilith would be able to...
Yeah, I mean, that comes into the whole conversation of, oh, if God is good and all-powerful, why does cancer exist? Or, you know, stuff like that.
The blame. Lilith became understood as a cursed woman who had lost her own children and thus began to haunt other expectant mothers so others could feel her own pain. As time would go on, she would be given more grand origins, her power stemming from her being one of the first women to ever lose a child in birth, and then later, the first
Oh, that's so
woman ever.
sad.
The first time this was seen overtly in a Jewish text would be in the alphabet of Ben Sirach. This was a medieval text that adapted some of the existing oral history surrounding the Book of Genesis and Lilith that wasn't designed to be faithful to the tradition, but instead to play with some of its ideas in new ways. Here, Lilith is presented as the wife of Adam, made from the same dust as him. Neither wants to be the passive partner sexually. As for one to be the partner who lays down would be to imply that they were lesser than...
I will not lie beneath you, but only on top, for you are fit only to be in the bottom position while I am the superior one. Oh my, okay. That is very. I didn't realize there were conversations like this in any kind of religious text. Wow. Okay. She's straight up us like, nope. I'm the top.
The other, despite being made from the same dust. Lilith flees from the garden to not have to deal with Adam, but God...
What? Flees and Lilith's like, oh, this guy sucks. He's like, suck. The woman you gave me has run away. What? At once the Holy One, blessed be he, sent these 3 angels to bring her back. Really? Did she not want to? She kind of seems she didn't want to be there. Said the Holy One to Adam, if she agrees to come back, what is made is good. If not, she must pit 100. What? If not, she must permit 100 of our children to die every day. What? She did not risk to return. The angel said, we will drown you in the sea. Leave me, she said. I was created only to cause sickness to infants. If the infant is male, I will have dominion over him for 8 days after his birth. And a female for 20 days. What is going on?
3 angels to bring her back, giving her the choice of returning with them or having to see 100 of her children killed every day. Imagery similar to that of the annual extermination in Hazbin Hotel, where angels come down to kill Lilith's citizens. This is what leads Lilith to become a haunter of pregnant women and young infants. Originally, it would seem that the idea of Adam and the name of Lilith were entirely separate mythologically, being different mythos meant to explain different things, but as Lilith's story of being the mother without children slowly grew to her being the first mother ever, this text managed to marry the ideas together, so to speak.
And then they have Charlie. It's interesting that I think Charlie's only like 20 years old as of the time of Hazbin Hotel. It's interesting that, 2,000-year history, we're starting from a day dot. It's very strange that they waited, 1,000, 2,000 years to have a child when wouldn't they be together the entire time if they were like escaping from the Garden of Eden? Actually, it'll be longer. I'm sorry, I was going off the birth of Jesus Christ when actually it would have been way before that, wouldn't it? So they've been together for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and eventually they're just like, yeah, let's have a kid.
Over the next 500 years after the alphabet of Ben Sirach would become popularized, the oral tradition involving Lilith would evolve with this new narrative in mind. Eve, as a mythological figure, has gone back and forth from being one of great reverence to one of great derision. In both Judaism and Christianity, she has been seen as the mother of all humans, who was an innocent victim of sabotage, to the originator of all evil because of her act of eating the fruit, with all women after her being cursed because of this.
That all women are cursed? Oh no, that's tough.
In an attempt to maintain the more pure image of Eve as a victim, as a mother we all look up to, Lilith would begin to take on more of the dark aspects of Eve's symbolic place in history, as per the story of Genesis. In the 13th century, the Jewish Kabbalistic text the Zohar would surface, which acts as a sort of key to decode the stories of the Torah, or what most Christians know as the first 5 books of the Bible. This text was claimed to be written much earlier, in the very first century of Christianity, and was written as a transcribed series of conversations between famous rabbis of the time. These rabbis would often have seemingly contradictory claims, but in these narratives you could see how, side by side, these contradictions point out what the real similarities are, showing more so the evolution of symbols in Jewish storytelling while unraveling their shared origins. At this point, Lilith had evolved not just to being the first wife of Adam, but after fleeing from the Garden of Eden, she ends up marrying a fallen angel named Samael. Samael
not Lucifer, Samael. Okay, now the serpent was craftier. Oh, okay.
Is described in the Zohar as a
Samael, the image of the serpent is Satan. Oh, Samael was right in the serpent. The image of the serpent is Satan, namely the evil inclination that entices humans to sin and then ascends to demand a punishment above. Oh my God.
Sort of unifying figure representing the tribe of fallen angels from the earlier book of Enoch. This text is dated to the centuries before Christ, but sometime after the compilation of the book of Genesis as we know it. The story elaborated on the details found in the book of Genesis, particularly leading...
I wonder who writes this. Like, who wrote the Book of Enoch? I guess it could be like collections of religious figures that come together to write things like that. I just wonder how they decide on certain things.
Up to the Great Flood and Noah's Ark. Here, Noah's ancestor Enoch is given a vision of the origins and eventual destruction of the race of beings known as the Nephilim, giants who covered the world before the flood and were the descendants of the sons of God. The sons of God, translated from sons of Elohim, were angelic beings sent down to watch over humans, but who rebelled against God by taking human wives and giving forbidden knowledge to them that they then passed down to their giant offspring.
Oh my God! So they come down and they're like, actually, we're gonna rebel by having children. They rebel because they're
In the
horny.
Zohar, these angels are unified by the character of Samael and then connected to the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Samael is explained as riding the serpent into Eden in order to seduce Eve after taking Lilith as his wife. This role in the show is played by Lucifer.
Wait, so he has Lilith as a wife and he wants to seduce Eve as well? Bro, don't cheat. Beginning to think this fella's not very nice.
Who married Lilith like Samael, entered the Garden of Eden in the form of a serpent, and then gave Eve the fruit of forbidden knowledge. Now, Lucifer is essentially the Christian version of Samael, but when
So interesting that it cuts from like Lucifer sabotaging the Garden of Eden, giving Eve the apple, the fruit of knowledge, and it cuts to him just like, I love this duck. Wow, it's so cute.
that sort of thing is said, I'm not saying that Christians looked at the character of Samael specifically from the Zohar and said, let's call him Lucifer. Instead, Lucifer's name first appeared in the Latin Vulgate translation of the Bible from the 4th century AD. This was done for a primarily Roman audience, and thus when it came time to translate certain passages that referenced Near Eastern mythology that surrounded Judaism, it made sense to fill in the gaps with figures Romans would be more familiar with. This passage I'm referring to is Isaiah 14, which describes a Babylonian king and how he has displeased God. He is described as being like Hallel ben Shahar, or Dawn, son of morning, which in the ancient Near East appeared to be a reference to Venus. Venus is closer to the sun than we are, so for about 9 months at a time, Venus can be seen trailing behind the sun after it sets, becoming
I'm surprised they knew they could like see Venus
visible
from
for
there.
only a short while before it follows the sun under the horizon. During this period,
You could see it. Wow. All right, that's sick.
Venus was generally referred to as the evening star by various different cultures.
It's quite
Over the
beautiful.
latter half of those 9 months, Venus would get closer to the sun from our perspective, with a period near the end where it isn't visible
Oh wait, is that it? Is that it? I've actually never seen
to
this
us
before.
at all. But for
Am I dumb? Am I actually like brain dead? I've never seen
about
that
9
before.
months after that, Venus would be visible only in the morning, rising before the sun and being visible for only a short while before the sun came up over the horizon and blocked it out with its great light. During this period, Venus is referred to as the morning star, hence why Lucifer
Oh, Lucifer Morningstar.
is
Okay.
named Lucifer Morningstar in the show.
I mean, that is a really sick name, though, to be fair. He still has so much Apple iconography, like in the backgrounds, too. You can see it there. You can see all these pictures are really cute. He's got this freaking amazing ducks that are super sick. I mean, listen, if you've been trapped in hell for thousands and thousands of years, you're probably going to get a little bit bored. You're going to want to have something to do, aren't
The
you?
motions of the stars were often used as a story structure to help apply history and myth to for ancient people, with different cultures using the same motions to tell different kinds of stories based off of what they had actually experienced. In Rome, Lucifer, meaning Lightbringer, was seen as a being that signaled the rise of the sun. He was a sort of child of the sun who helped it rise every morning. This wasn't a part of Rome's practical religion or mythology, with Venus being a female goddess in their more overt religious systems. With this story of Lucifer being a star that pulled the sun around being more what we think of today as a fairy tale that was meant to help people learn more about astronomy. Now, before the translation of Lucifer, my understanding was this passage was something already heavily examined by Greek scholars, both after and before the spread of Christianity. Greek or Hellenistic readers of the Old Testament saw this mention in Isaiah as a sort of lost lore of the ancient Israelites. It presented Venus as a more negative entity, one who tries to outshine the sun by rising before it, before being defeated by the sun in the end. In the Ugaritic mythology of the Baal cycle, this plays out with the god Athar, who represents Venus, trying to ascend to the throne of previous gods that had been knocked down. This is an example of the motions of a planet like Venus being used to help remember local history, with this myth of a Venus-like god trying to ascend to the throne and failing, matching the actions of a tribe that had tried to rise to power in the area in the past. This was a common motif
Damn, fuck this Venus guy trying to ascend to the throne. What's wrong with you? Aren't you happy just being a planet?
in older mythologies because of such events. Before the time of Jesus, when the Jewish Old Testament was being translated into Greek, the Book of Enoch would be translated as well, and thus their scholars would identify the Venus figure of Isaiah 14 with the tribe of fallen angels from the Book of Enoch, and centuries later, the name Lucifer would be attached to that during the Latin translation. A more unique entity within Hazbin Hotel is Charlie, who is half angel on her father's side, but also half human on her mother's side.
Oh, I do forget that she is half human, right? Lilith is a human. Although Charlie certainly doesn't look human. Charlie certainly has a lot of Luciferian features. I mean, just like the clown kind of, I don't know. I'm sorry to say clown makeup, but it kind of does look like clown makeup a little bit. She's super pale faced, which I guess makes sense in hell because there's no sun in hell, so it makes sense that everyone's very pale. I just don't want to get like the polka dots go. I guess I do love the character design in Hazbin Hotel though. The character design is always like on point. It's really, really good. All the characters are incredibly unique and interesting.
Though her story is not just similar to the supposed children of Lilith in Jewish lore.
Like you have the cross on, is the name Vaggie? It's been a while. I'm sorry. The cross that goes over her hair. And of course, like, you know, why she gets that.
The mother of
Spoilers.
all demons. But to the supposed children of Eve and the serpent as well. As mentioned earlier, the Zohar equates the story of the Garden of Eden with the Book of Enoch, and thus Eve is depicted in the Zohar as being impregnated by the fallen angel who gave her forbidden knowledge, Samael. This is why the actual Garden of Eden narrative has God telling Eve that her descendants and the descendants of the serpent will have enmity with each other, following which we get the story of Cain and Abel.
Oh, next she gave birth to her brother Abel. Abel was the keeper of sheep, but Cain was one who walked ground. Cain and Abel, the first murder that then, of course, the original isn't that the original? No, the original sin is the eating the fruit, isn't it? Not the murder.
Zohar confirms that in the Jewish tradition, Cain was interpreted as the son of the serpent, hence why he killed his brother Abel, who was born of Eve and Adam instead of Eve and the serpent. Cain's descendants are even referred to as the sons of God and Nephilim, with them being described as looking like the humans below as well as the angels above because of their father Samael. Lilith and Eve both thus essentially tell the same story of being the earliest of women, with Lilith focusing on the parts of Eve's story where women married fallen angels and gave birth to a race of giants or demons called Nephilim. It is the act of giving...
Were they really giants or were they merely called giants, though? I always get confused on that because there are some mythologies and some religions that they call people giants and they're not necessarily bigger than everyone else.
To Eve that creates hell, with Charlie explaining that this opens up a new realm of darkness, a pit that Lucifer and Lilith are cast into, as Lucifer is viewed as creating this pit. Before this, it was assumed that all souls would manifest in heaven, I guess, with no hell for these souls to go to instead. This parallels how, through the guidance of watchers from the Book of Enoch, the humans would not have fallen into a state of sin, with the state of hell being seen in Christianity as a sort of mistake that Jesus has been sent down to fix. After his death...
Oh wow, really? Jesus was sent down to fix the mistake of hell. I guess it didn't
On the
work.
cross, he is said to descend into the afterlife to rescue the souls that are trapped there, with later stories depicting him as rescuing even the patriarchs being trapped there. Early in the storybook narration, the angels
Really? I didn't realize there was a narrative that went that
are
way.
said to worship good and shield the world from evil, both of whom seem to be personifications, embodiments, entities that can take form instead of just ideas. Existence thus was a place made safe by the angels who were trying to prevent the entity of evil from seeping into reality, and Lucifer ruined that. He didn't just do...
Yeah, I guess he kind of fucked up. Sorry, there's evil now. That's pretty bad, guys.
To hell with his actions, but he made it so that the essence of evil itself could create its own darker reality in hell, its own life forms that mirror that on Earth in dark and twisted ways.
Oh, so then that results in the creatures in hell. I guess they're not necessarily evil, though. The hellhounds and all the creatures and the imps that reside in hell, sure, like they're more inclined to do bad things, but they're not necessarily bad by nature, I think.
And it has given evil the opportunity to take over Earth itself, as we will explore later in the video. In Hazbin Hotel, the primary focus is of...
Damn, Lucifer was... I mean, Lucifer did some pretty terrible stuff then, I guess. Like, Lucifer sounds so super powerful if he could just allow evil to take over the earth.
The sinners, who, thanks to Lucifer, manifest in hell with a form that reflects their sinful life on Earth.
Ah, yeah, so it does. Okay. So I wonder why some of them result as like insects and animals and certain things like that.
So recently, this was assumed to be a permanent punishment, as souls are immortal when they reach heaven or hell, and a death without an angelic weapon just leads to them regenerating where they already live.
But if you are killed with an angelic weapon, that's like true death, where you just cease to exist, I suppose?
However, Serpentius proved that somehow, quite possibly through actually redeeming himself, that a death in hell can lead to you manifesting again in heaven as an actual angel.
But you are manifesting as the same sinful form. I wonder why the form didn't change when you turn to, go to heaven, because if it is a punishment and you are seen as your sin, then once you are redeemed, like would it not go away?
However, in addition to creating a hellscape for the sinners, there are also those native species of hell as well, and more demonic royals who we aren't entirely sure if they are angels like Lucifer or more powerful native species. But we'll be breaking all of that down as we descend into the lower 6 rings of hell to explore the 2 forms of demonic nobility. These are referred to in the show as the 7 sins and the Ars Goetia. These 7 sins, as discussed earlier, are modeled after the real-life 7 deadly sins, and
I'm excited to see the other archangels, the sins. I'm excited to see the rest of them in Helluva Boss, or maybe we'll see them in Hazbin Hotel. I don't know, but maybe they'll make an appearance.
Particular demonology associated with Peter Binsfield. This 1500s theologian was known for his part in torturing people that he claimed were witches, women, men, and even children. Peter Binsfield claimed that after torturing these people, they gave him this list of demons as the royal hierarchy of hell.
What? They tortured them. They're gonna say anything. They're gonna say absolutely anything to stop being tortured. I'd make up some shit. I'd be like, yeah, oh my god. There's so many of the. I got the names. Do you want the names? Listen, you stop peeling my nails off. I got those names for you, buddy.
However,
don't you worry.
It matches other demon lists from the centuries before, such as the earlier Lantern of Light, which was also about these 7 sins, but with some of the names being shuffled or different demon names being used entirely. The Ars Goetia, on the other hand, was a demonology found in the 1600s text called the Lesser Key of Solomon. This featured a total of 72 demons, ranging from the high-ranking king.
Presidents? Oh my god, there's president. I mean, listen, I think some presidents are going to hell. I'm not gonna lie.
To the lower princes, dukes, and marquis, written in different times by different people with different influences. They can have different ideas about what each demon most embodies or how the hierarchies work, but Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss do a beautiful job of marrying those ideas together in their extended mythos. Now, below the world we see in Hazbin Hotel with its red sky are the other 6 rings of hell, each having their own species native there and its own differently colored sky and an almost rainbow-like pattern. Helluva Boss focuses on showing us the other rings, which are not seen at all so far in Hazbin Hotel, since the sinners are
the Gluttony Land genuinely seems like a sick place to be, I can't lie.
The Pride Ring. This isn't explained in World, but it is assumed that, outside of making sure that the 2 stories don't have too much overlap, the choice to make sinners restricted to the Pride Ring would be so that Lucifer in particular will have responsibility over them, as they are in hell because of Lucifer, with the other natives not necessarily wanting to deal with the sinners.
I guess, oh my god, there must be like untold billions in hell, though. If we have all of these different rings and all the sinners that go to hell, which, I mean, there's a lot of sinners out there. There's a lot of sinners, guys. A lot of sinners out there. And then you have all of the native species, of which there's probably also billions of those as well, because they've had so much time to reproduce and grow.
Because the sinners are immortal, they can easily push out the lower species in other rings if given access, and could ultimately enslave them generationally if not for the sinners being restricted to pride.
Oh, and that's true because they have the overlord function where people can take control of other people. Like Alistair has control of Keith David's on the ground there.
The closest we get to seeing the other rings in Hazbin Hotel is in Lucifer's room, where we see a map of the 7 rings of hell hanging on his wall, with the red ring, Pride, being his ring at the very top. In early life,
because he is the most powerful. That makes sense. Oh, it's interesting. They have like a power level. I wonder if this power level is, I wonder if it's like accurate. I mean, I guess it is because Lucifer's at the top. He should be the most powerful. He controls the entire place. Then Charlie being like, I guess as a spawn of Lucifer, just a silly way to say it, as the child of Lucifer, I guess she is also very, very strong and powerful too, which means she doesn't really have any problems or anything to worry about. But it doesn't really seem that way in the show. Like in the show, Charlie doesn't seem like as strong as maybe like the sins would be, or the Ars Goetia, which are very cool, by the way. Like those
streams, Vizipop gave an offhanded hierarchy showing the power ranking of different groups in hell. At the very bottom were the shortest lifespan natives, the imps and hellhounds. Above them are other common species from the other rings, followed by the
what in God's name is a Fizzaroli? Like that guy, I don't even know what the heck he is.
Who rank higher because of
is he not an imp? I thought he was an imp.
Their immortality, even though they are restricted to just one ring. Above the sinners are the overlords, who are generally just sinners who have accumulated a lot of power due to demonic deals, where one demon gives his soul and its power to another demon in exchange for some sort of favor or arrangement.
Oh, yeah, and then Charlie makes a deal with Alistair. Dude, Alistair as a character is such a sick character. I mean, he's an absolute freak. He's a weirdo. He was like a cannibal. He's a completely terrible person, but he's such an interesting character, and he has such a cool design too.
Above the overlords are the Ars Goetia, followed by the other 6
I see Alistair might be one of my favorite characters in the show, apart from maybe like Angel.
sins, who are outranked by Charlie and Lilith. Charlie and Lilith are said to get their power directly from Lucifer, who, as a high-class angel, massively outranks the other 6 sins so much that Charlie and a human like Lilith can still overpower them with the second-hand magic that he shares with them. Just below Pride with its red sky is the Wrath Ring with its orange sky.
And you can see like Lucifer makes quick work of Adam
Known to be
too.
ruled by Satan, though we haven't seen him on screen yet. Instead, we mostly know of him from the constant references the imps make to him. While imps are found all over hell, it seems their origin is in the Wrath Ring, where they revere Satan like a god, using Satan as an exclamation instead of God or even Lucifer. Now, while the Peter Binsfield classification and other schools of thought have shown Satan to be a separate entity from Lucifer, they were often...
I always thought they were the same thing. I thought it was just a separate name for the same thing. Though I imagine, like, I thought all of the 7 deadly sins name, like Asmodeus, Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub. I thought they were all just names for, you know, the devil.
considered the same figure in history, both being names and traditions that ended up tied to what we might call the devil figure. Whereas Lucifer's name originated from that fabled Roman figure of Venus as described before, Satan came first from the Old Testament book of Job. In this story, God talks about the sons of Elohim, a term that was used to describe those fallen angels from the book of Enoch, but which we know to be angelic because it also is used to describe the angels who interact directly with God in various Bible stories like this one. Here, Ha-Satan, which translates as the adversary, is welcomed among the sons of God, where he begins to question the purity of one of God's people, Job. God gives Ha-Satan permission to test Job, taking away everything Job has, but so that in the end, both Job and Ha-Satan will realize the full extent of what humans are capable of. While our culture likes to act like this was some sort of bet being made between God and some evil entity, that idea would actually develop much later, with Ha-Satan in the text being more so an ignorant child of God who, like humans, needs to learn by experience. The title of Ha-Satan translates as the accuser and the adversary, reflecting how this particular son of God accused Job of not being worthy and ultimately became his adversary to test God's claims. In Greek, this would translate as diabolos, meaning slanderer or accuser, and over time would evolve to the word devil. The identity
There it is. It took a while, but we finally arrived there. There's the devil.
of Ha-Satan would evolve in the centuries after the Book of Job was first written, and before the time of Christ, Satan or the devil would be reinterpreted as the entity we see him as in the New Testament.
He's always interpreted as someone with red skin, horns, and these evil-looking wings.
Here, the devil figure is referred to both as Diabolos and Satan, using the Satan of the original Hebrew as a sort of alternate title for him in the same text. The Book of Job is believed to be among the earliest of the Old Testament stories to be written down, and there are comparisons made within the Zohar that, in my opinion, highlight how the Sons of God narrative from the Book of Enoch is actually an evolution of the story of the Book of Job. In the Zohar, interactions between the Sons of God and God himself are described from before the Sons of God were sent down to earth. Here, they act like the Ha-Satan of Job, insisting humans are not worthy of the blessing God gives them.
What is man that you are mindful of him? For he is bound to sin before you. Why, therefore, do you want us to be under him?
God insists, however, that the angels would sin even more than the humans, and they are then sent down.
The Holy One, blessed be he, replied, if you were down below on earth like he, you would sin more than he does. Damn. He was just like, hey, listen, you can't talk shit, man. You'd do worse than he would.
With the mission to teach humans, with God knowing that they will succumb to the nature of matter and end up sinning in rebellion. Satan, thus, while having different origins from Lucifer, is very much tied to the actual fallen angel narrative, hence why the New Testament showed Satan as the dark king of earth trying to tempt Jesus with all it had to offer, and the book of Revelations portrayed him as
Which, I mean, back in those days, all it had to offer was, like, probably not that much. You didn't exactly have your Game Boys yet. You couldn't tempt him with a level 100 Arceus.
falling from heaven and into the pit of hell, bringing 1/3 of the stars or angels down with him, similar to
1/3? Oh my god, that's so many. Goodness me.
the fallen angels in the Book of Enoch. In the show, it's not confirmed if Satan and the other royals of hell will be angels or natives to hell, and in a Patreon Q&A, series writer Adam Nalen confirmed that the writers had not quite decided which would be the case, leaving it open as they developed the lore, perhaps to see what will just
The character designs of the Sins is also so sick. The character designs are just in general are so creative and interesting. I'm not surprised this is such a popular show.
Best fit in the end. This may have changed since then, but the characters had already been developed without that in mind, and as such, this is not something we can decode using clues from the show. However,
like gluttony really shocked me. I was like, how is wait, not this.
And as such,
it's like, how is this? This is gluttony, right? Oh, sorry, not gluttony. This is Beelzebub. And I'm like, how is this Beelzebub? Like the queen of the gluttony part. It's just so out there. It's so different, but it's like so creative and interesting. The colors are just so, it feels like she's been splashed with paint.
This is not something we can decode using clues from the show. However, we can explore what those two different options might mean in terms of the existing lore. Now, ultimately, whether or not they are angels from heaven or native powerful entities from hell, they are angels in some sense, as hell was created from Lucifer, seemingly connecting the world to the concept of evil, with heaven being a manifestation of the concept of good. So even if Satan, Beelzebub, and the others are natives to hell instead of angels, they could still be considered of equal power and stature in their own terrain, beings who are essentially the same as angels, but from the essence of darkness instead of from the essence of light like the angels seem to be.
And also aren't the seven deadly sins, like in their own realm, they are also, as well as being like their entity of like they have their body and they have their personality, like aren't they also the entire ring? Like they also embody the area of the ring. I'm not sure if I'm describing this correctly, but as well as being themselves, they are also the area that they rule.
Level below Satan,
they are
in the Wrath
area.
Ring is Beelzebub in the Gluttony Ring. In the show, Beelzebub is presented as female, but traditionally is not just male, but often considered the same character as Satan or Lucifer, being the devil.
Yeah, that's why I thought.
Because of that,
it's an interesting change.
Three demons have also been listed together as a sort of unholy trinity in various writings to parallel the holy trinity of the church. Like Satan and Lucifer, however, Beelzebub gets her name from her own unique origin. Beelzebub or Baalzebub came from the root word Baal, meaning Lord. This term was used for chief god.
Wait, Baal? Oh my god, wait, Baal? B-A-A-L? Hold on. Is that where the Dungeons and Dragons Baal god came from? The Lord of Murder?
Like El, and in fact, Baal could also be pronounced Baal. Because Baal was a common name for gods in the ancient Near East, the term Baalzebub would develop, meaning Lord of the Flies, to demonize those other gods. In the Gluttony Ring, Beelzebub rules over the Hellhounds, who are famous from real-life legends as demons who come up from hell in order to drag doomed souls back down with them. This is why Hellhounds like Luna are able to scope out
But Luna is so sick, though.
Exact targets in the show. This being some sort of demonic evolutionary trait that Hell has taken advantage of to conquer the Earth. Another ring down, we have the Greed Ring with its green sky. This ring is ruled by Mammon, the demon embodying the sin of greed.
And he's a clown. He's a money clown. Look
Mammon,
at the guy.
as a word, originally meant the love of money, and in the Bible was personified as an entity in metaphor, leading to the name being used as a demon representing greed as a whole later on. The inspiration for Mammon as a jester-themed demon likely comes from the demon entity Lucifuge.
You know, I just realized the gluttony ring of hell in this universe really reminds me of the Slanesh god from Warhammer 40k that is all about excess, and it's not necessarily just about lust, or it's not necessarily, well, it's not about lust, obviously. It's not necessarily just about eating a lot in gluttony. It's about an excess, and it's about having a lot, or it's about like taking a lot of drugs or drink. Or anything. So many things
Lucifer
you can have a lot of.
Meaning Lightbringer, and Lucifuge meaning fugitive from the light. This demon was depicted wearing a jester's outfit and was said to be in charge of the Bank of Hell, such as
Wow, yeah, no, that's exactly where it came from then, 100%.
Mammon is in the show.
The Bank of Hell? Yeah, we're gonna have to raise some interest rates. The mortgages are gonna go crazy in hell.
His ring is primarily home to loan sharks who don't have real-life equivalents and instead just work as a mafia group of hell who exploit the poor populations with high-interest loans. They take advantage of a population of imps that have moved into the Greed Ring at some point in the past, letting them have all the low-wage jobs in the factories that help bring more wealth into the Greed Ring, but not into the pockets of the workers. We also see what looks like dinosaur-themed demons in the background of this ring, such as Triceratops, pterodactyls, and others.
Wow, I mean they're sick though. Like if I was gonna go and if I had to become one of these creatures, I would want to be a dinosaur
Considering
creature.
sharks are about as old as dinosaurs, it makes sense that they'd all exist in this ring, where perhaps not much has changed since they happen to evolve into these forms. Another ring down with its blue sky is Lust, ruled by Asmodeus. Asmodeus is interesting because he's not just the embodiment of lust and thus the ruler of the Lust Ring, but he is also a king in the Ars Goetia, the second
I felt like the lust sin demon form would be like more androgynous, more like half and half, like Slanesh is in 40k.
form of nobility that we will be getting into more detail later on.
But Asmodeus is like straight up, it seems very male
Asmodeus
presented.
is among the most important characters we've seen in regards to how the demons influence the earth, and it's interesting that the way they do this seems to go against what Lucifer should be okay with, or what he should allow, but we don't entirely know why yet, though I will give some theories on this later as well. Envy is the one ring we have not seen, though from the Peter Binsfield list we know it to be ruled by Leviathan. Leviathan is well known as a biblical sea monster, and through a process of elimination, the species that is native there appears to be deep sea fish demons that glow in the dark.
Okay, I mean that's pretty sick though. Like they put on a really good performance. I'm just saying it was a really good performance.
This has made some fans assume that this will be a very dark ring, not just because of the dark purple color its sky is implied to have through the maps of the rings of hell and such, but because potentially it will also just be one giant deep sea ocean, a place that the other species cannot travel to, at least without some effort. Leviathan is a symbol often used to represent a sort of primordial chaos and times of turmoil before God created.
I wonder if that's going to be the one sin that is kind of more animalistic in nature and doesn't necessarily have a consciousness or a personality. It is simply, I mean, it's envy though. I feel like maybe it has to have a personality in order to envy, right?
Order in the world. And of all the demon princes, I think Leviathan is the most likely to point to origins from deeper within hell instead of being fallen angels. Finally, we have the Sloth Ring with its pink skies ruled by Belphegor. Belphegor is not seen on screen yet, but is believed to be, as the embodiment of sloth, extremely lazy, indulging in a variety of prescription drugs to get through the day that she then markets to the masses of hell. Some fans speculate that Belphegor will be combined with Baphomet, the alleged deity worshipped by the Knights Templar. While I found no connection between them in real life, this ring is run by a species of demons that look like Baphomet with candles on their heads, and the princes
Candles? What happens if the candle runs out? Is that when you
of
die?
each ring seem to have some sort of connection to their species. For now, however, this is just a theory, and in fact, Baphomet may end up just being their own unique entity.
Is it just a theory? It's just a theory.
Regardless of if these 6 sins are all angels or all demons, or a combination of the two, they are all very separate from Lucifer. Lucifer's sin is pride, and he embodies that in a sense, but he doesn't do things that are traditionally evil the way the others seem to.
Yeah, Lucifer is not, I mean, honestly, the 7 deadly sins, gluttony seems like a little bit evil. Mammon is like very evil. Asmodeus just seems like kind of chill. He doesn't seem like that bad of a fella. And then Lucifer is just like, oh, I just want to make some cool ducks and protect my family. I don't know what's going on.
Who receive free will, and
but I guess his sin is like not taking care of the sinners because the sinners are having absolutely terrible lives and Lucifer's not doing anything about it. Maybe that's it too.
To act sinful. And Lucifer is being punished in his own mind just for thinking that the humans might be capable of being better with free will. The other sins, however, seem to actually enjoy indulging in their sin and the sin of the masses. While Lucifer may actually argue for less sinful action in hell overall, the others have markets that rely on sin, as well as infecting the rest of hell with sin and even the earth. Mammon in particular is famous for how he exploits hell, even milking Lucifer for what he can. While it's not shown in Hazbin Hotel, Lucifer was shown in Helluva Boss to have his own theme park called Lulu World. This was so successful for Lucifer that Mammon thought he could make money by simply ripping it off with his own version in the Greed Ring called Lulu Land, which caters exclusively to Hellborn since sinners are isolated to pride. Lucifer tried to sue Mammon for trademark infringement, but the
What? Lucifer tried to sue Mammon for trademark infringement? We're in hell. Bro, you're Lucifer. Just go beat him up.
courts of hell actually sided with Mammon on this, and he gets to play the victim while ripping off Lucifer.
Oh
Mammon
my god,
claims
that's
in these
insane.
documents that he's close friends with Lucifer, but he's very clearly happy to sabotage him for profit, and really all of hell as a whole, especially in his own ring. Beelzebub talks about the other sins as if they are family, however, though doesn't mention Mammon in particular, and even complains about Belphegor. Asmodeus, meanwhile, spreads lust not just around hell, but up on Earth, and interfering with Earth is what got Lucifer sent to hell to begin with. Asmodeus does this, it would seem, for the Ars Goetia, the second system of nobility made up of 72 demons, with Asmodeus being just one of its kings. The only character we know of that may be above him in the Ars Goetia so far is Paimon, who is a king like Asmodeus, but seems a lot more focused on his duties as a Goetia. Paimon is the father of Stolas, who is just a prince, but who is entrusted with the duty of decoding the prophecies surrounding the stars of the Earth in particular. These prophecies in our mystic texts are about the end times, such as the Book of Revelations, which is
Oh, that one seems like a pretty important one. Yeah, you wanted to quote that end times prophecy before it happens. I mean, listen, I know you've got probably many thousands of years, but you're gonna maybe want to put like 2 people on that. We should probably put like 2 people on that. It's the end time. It's very important.
is filled with astrological symbolism. These end times are meant to be the end of life as we know it, with the demons of hell coming out of their pit to do battle with the angels of heaven. Traditionally, this is understood to be the devil, who would be Lucifer, though in the Book of Revelations, he is of course called Satan. Now, Paimon and the Goetia, like Satan and the 6 sins discussed before, were not developed with any plan as to whether or not they will be fallen angels like Lucifer, or natives to hell of similar but ultimately lesser power. So instead of looking for clues that would prove one or another, we're going to use what we do know in the show to talk about how each would play out. Asmodeus said he had known Mammon since hell first started, and if they were angels, that would mean that they first really got to know each other after being banished into hell. Lucifer may not have been the only angel to interfere with the Earth. He may have given the humans free.
Well, the previous, I think there's a while ago, it said like 1/3 of the angels were banished, right? So I mean, like, wouldn't that kind of line up?
But Mammon and Asmodeus could have also been going down there to spread lust and greed. Lucifer was said to create hell with his actions in the show, but since he was thrown into the pit, there would be no reason not to throw other angels from heaven in there with Lucifer as well, other angels who had transgressed in their own way, becoming fallen, such as Sarah warns Emily of. If they were natives to hell, however, they would also simply manifest in hell when it came into existence, and thus would know each other as powerful entities from the very beginning. As of now, there is no real reason why the other sins, and the Goetia in particular, would want to continue coming after the Earth if they were angels, as they don't rule pride or have control over sinners, with their own markets such as Asmodeus being kept safe by not interacting with the humans that the Goetia help sabotage so they can go to hell. While the sins and Goetia are generally written in real life to be angels or the descendants of angels, it is more interesting to the lore of the Helliverse, in my opinion, if they are natives to hell who never lived in heaven.
That's what I thought. I genuinely just believe that the Goetia were just like citizens of hell that were just like very highly placed and had like specific duties that would help keep hell, it's kind of like in order or in disorder, I suppose.
This would explain why they continue to haunt Earth and spread sin, and why they are so concerned about the eventual conflict with heaven despite natives being ignored by the actual extermination. The angels were said in Charlie's narration of her storybook to have shielded existence from evil, and Lucifer's actions creating hell seem to sabotage that. It was by giving humans the free will to understand evil that they allowed evil to seep into reality, and seemingly what gave evil permission to interfere with the Earth the way angels like Lucifer had. It makes sense to me then that the leaders of hell who are trying to conquer Earth would be natives to hell and not angels from heaven who went to hell like Lucifer. They could look so much like angels in some cases, such as the Ars Goetia in particular, because they are both simply natural manifestations of higher level beings just from different moral sources, good and evil. Either way, the lore is set up that these royals are essentially angels, the only real distinction being whether or not they were angels who fell from heaven or were born in such a
they're the hell version of angels, right?
In hell. To stem from the source of evil, however, while interesting, doesn't quite explain why Lucifer would allow that to happen or be equated with them as rulers of hell. And whatever direction the show goes with them, there will definitely need to be some sort of elaboration on why hell is simultaneously a prison where royals like Stolas can be killed by angelic weapons, but are also allowed to just interfere with the Earth while being exempt from the extermination.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense either. Yeah, why would, if they are going around and they're like fucking with Earth a lot, then why would they let them do that? Why would they not exterminate them too?
What do you guys think? Thanks for making...
And they also, they can be killed by an angelic weapon, but they choose not to. Maybe they like it like that. Maybe they like the balance being like that. But that was a sick video. That was incredibly in-depth. There was a lot of information in that. I hope that everybody enjoyed it. I thoroughly did. And I hope that you will go and subscribe to Cartoon Universe. And I hope that you will also subscribe here as well.